This is Ed Kyle for Taking Hacks with New Jersey Baseball. I'm here with New Jersey Baseball founder Mike Lahoud and Paul Panik, head baseball coach at Iona College. Join us for some insights as to how the pandemic has affected the recruiting process and what Coach Panik looks for in potential recruits. Coach Panik, I'd like to throw it over to you and just to talk about how this pandemic has affected college recruiting from your perspective. And we're going to have a little roundtable discussion about that. So please let us know a little bit about you, the program, and how you're being affected.
Well, first of all, Mike and Ed, thanks for having me on, man. Really happy to be here. Happy to be doing something today, right? Instead of sitting on the couch and checking Twitter and looking at profiles and stuff. But, so I'm completing my eighth Division I season. I've kind of bounced around a little bit. This is my second year as Iona baseball head coach. And it's been great, right, to be able to come back. I'm a 31-year-old head coach. Not too many 31-year-olds can be able to say that. So for me, that's a great. It's just fantastic, right? It's something that you always dream about. You want to be able to put your own stamp and make your own program and recruit the kids you want and shape it the way you want to shape it. So for me to be able to do that at such a young age, it's something very, very special to me.
That's great to hear, Paul, and congratulations for that, because you're certainly right. You are a unicorn of sorts in that realm. And also, while you're on board, thanks for coming on board. This is the very first episode of Taking Hacks with New Jersey Baseball. So we thank you for coming on board.
Anytime, fellas. Hey, somebody's got to be the trailblazer, right?
Absolutely. So we appreciate that. So, Paul, as Ed mentioned, why don't you talk to us right now about what's with all the changes, the shutting down and all the things that have happened that are just complete craziness right now. What is the state of college baseball right now?
It's funny, because at one moment you think, well, oh man, everything's a mess, and then you sit down and you're like, well, we're okay, but then the other side creeps in and you kind of go back and forth. I think there's just a lot of unknowns, right? A lot of athletic departments are working through budgetary constraints, budgetary items, trying to figure out what we can and can't do moving forward. Scholarship, what are we going to do with the seniors? Will they get any relief, any help? And then for me personally, it's the recruiting side, which I'm sure we'll touch on. My freshmen that I just had as freshmen are going to be freshmen again, right? And so there's a lot of concerns with how the roster shapes will be. Will the NCAA lift some of the mandates because we are the spring sport that has the 35 roster cap. It's a hard roster cap. 27 on scholarship, 35. Now for this year, they're going to allow the exempted seniors, like the guys that were seniors that choose to come back, be exempted from the 35 man roster. So, but for the following year and the year after that, that's gonna be the concern because they haven't discussed what they're gonna do, right? So that for me is the uneasy part, right? Because it's like, okay, well, who's coming, who's going, who's staying, who wants to be here and whatnot. So I think there will be more answers. I think we just all have to just be a little bit patient, right? In these times, everybody wants the answer to yesterday, but you can't. Sometimes you can't rush it, right? Because some schools have gone as far as furloughing some people, right? And that's not what we're all about. We're not. That's not on the table. But certain things are for certain schools. So as long as a good decision can be made on what we can and can't do, I'm happy with taking the time to get it right in a sense.
All right, good to hear. That makes a lot of sense, and that leads right into my next question, Paul. We'd have already sent out here at the New Jersey Baseball to our players, kind of like how the new landscape of recruiting is for them, and we wanted them to be aware of the changes and how they affect them. As far as like you're talking about different numbers, especially for the senior class, the 2020 or 2020, I'm sorry, that are graduating into the fall.
Yep.
But also how that's going to affect the numbers or the amount of scholarships being offered to the juniors, which are 21s, and even sophomores, which are 22. So we got that out to them, and I think we covered it pretty good. And so from your perspective, how, from a college perspective, how has that changed or how has that affected as you see recruiting now?
So for me personally, our 21 class it almost stops in the tracks, right? Stops dead in the tracks because we need to figure out who's going to take their fifth year next year, right? We have I want to say 8 or 9 juniors, right? And juniors from last year that are juniors again, so they're redshirt juniors this year, and they're going to graduate, but how many of them want to come back? Right? How many do I want to keep? Right? Because at the end of the day, this is a business, right? But I have to handle my guys first, right? So for me personally, the recruiting timeline for the 21s is pushed back a little bit, right? I'm gonna have to go. We haven't been able to see anybody this spring, and we haven't been able to see any high school games. No junior college, no high school. And none of those games. So for me, it's going to be a mad scramble when it opens back up to see as many 21s as I can to kind of finish out the roster. But right now we may only be adding another couple guys, if that. It just kind of depends on what my current guys want to do. Again, and I give them the option, right, because they're my guys, and I have to start there. You have to handle your business internally in your own house first before you can start looking outside to bring kids in. So because then at the same time, you don't want to put a 21 in a bad situation where you're walking a kid into fail, right? I'm not trying to bring in 15 catchers and or 15 outfielders and 30 pitchers, right? Because then it's not fair to the kids, right? So I have to make good decisions on who's staying, who's going, and then bringing in the right kids. And the hard part about the 21 class is that some of those kids are going to have to understand that they may have to take backloaded cash deals. They may, scholarship on the back end. They may not be on scholarship the first year or two, right? Because all of our money is tied up now, right? For an extra year than we thought it was going to be. So that's how that kind of shapes those classes. We will have more freedom in the 22 class to be able to add kids, but it's not going to be a ton, because when you look at it, I had 8 sophomores this year, right? 8 freshmen, so that's 16, and then I'm bringing in another probably about 13, another 13 freshmen next year, right? So that's almost 30 guys already, right? So see how it starts to kind of add up. Everything kind of adds up. So I just have to be diligent about keeping my roster in check, and not over recruiting. You always have to add a couple extra guys every year, because there is attrition. Guys leave, guys don't get the playing time they want. Guys don't like me, they don't like my staff, they don't like the school. Maybe they're homesick, or maybe they failed out, or maybe they were just a bad kid, right? And we can't have that in the locker room. So there's always some attrition. So we always have to grab an extra couple guys, right? Because that happens. You never want to, in a perfect world, you have 8 seniors graduate and 8 freshmen coming in, but it just never works like that. So you're always, over recruiting a touch, but not in a sense where you have 50 kids in fall camp. You just want to make sure that you don't get left short, because I've seen it where, you start with 34 or 35, and then before you know it, you're down to 30. 2 guys get hurt, an ACL and a Tommy John, and there you go. You're down to 28 healthy guys. And out of those 28 healthy guys, how many are ready to play? How many of those are freshmen? So that's where the whole recruiting process is going to get tricky for some kids. And, and now, kind of sliding off to the side of this, it's what about the transfer portal? Right? All these kids are now in the transfer portal. We have grad students, everywhere. Since the season ended, Kendall Rogers put out this morning a tweet. Over 400 divisional baseball players are on the portal.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's enough for what? 11. That's enough for what? 11 teams, 11 35-man rosters.
Yeah.
Right. So where are those players going to go? So if the NCAA doesn't bump up, for not still coming, but the following and the one after that, if they don't bump make it, let's say 30 on scholarship and 40, let's say, you know what I mean? Where are all those kids going to go? Where are all those kids going to play?
Yeah.
Right. So that becomes okay. Well, and then the recruiting process. Am I renting a guy for a year, a grad guy from name your school, or am I going to get a freshman who would probably have to redshirt, right? And then and that's another topic, and that's a hot topic of discussion because of the redshirt rules, and how things work with that. So would I rather bring in a kid that I know is going to have to redshirt and he doesn't really want to, and his family doesn't really want to, but they want the Division I opportunity? Maybe, right? Or do I go out and I rent that, grad guy and plug and play, and then I go to the next class and get a freshman that can play right away? You see what I'm saying? Just based on the numbers, and it just gets tricky.
So would it be safe to say, like, one of the things that we shared on that video with our players was the fact that these juniors, nonetheless, at least the juniors, and maybe your top sophomores, maybe from the 22 class, but they need to be ready. They need to be ready to hit the ground running, because if this all gets smashed together in a short season, or almost a smash up between summer ball and fall ball, they're going to have to show something. I mean, we don't want to put pressure on the kids. We want them to have fun, but reality is reality. And that's some of the things that we did share with our kids. What do you see from your standpoint? What, if anything, different should players be doing, especially maybe 21s, in this changed scouting environment that you just laid out for us?
I think a couple things. I think one, they need to be a constant communication, not only with us, but with their travel coaches, with you guys, right? They need to, you guys need to be apprised of where they are, right? Are they throwing bullpens? Are they ready to go? And that even translates into, like, my guys, going out to summer ball. Hey, what have you been able to do? Have you been able to throw? Well, if you haven't been able to go out, like, we have a couple kids that are in New York City, they literally can't do anything, right? So they've now taken a full month off of throwing, right? So we got to ramp them back up. So same thing with your guys. They have to be ready to hit the ground running.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem for me is that they don't have that body of work. They don't have that spring season, right? So we're going to have to, as I know as a college coach, I'm going to have to see as many kids as many times as possible. Right. So for as much as I don't like this for certain kids, but it might behoove them and some of the travel coaches to have their practice on Tuesday and Wednesday and invite coaches, right? Because sometimes there isn't anything going on. There's always something going on, but hey, if I'm locking in on a kid, I might need another look. Right. Yeah. So I know, for example, you guys do a good job of always trying to have a practice, at least one a week. Right. And, the kids need to take those seriously because they're not getting the reps. They haven't gotten the reps. Right. So to try to get them up to game speed as quick as possible, they need to be ready to go kind of as quick as possible. And there's no way to simulate that. Right. Throwing off of a dirt mound in your backyard to a fence 5 feet away. There's no way to simulate actual gameplay. But yeah. as long as they're working out and doing what they have to hit the ground running, that's where all you guys can ask, and that's all we can ask too. Like, there's always that, there's always that little grain of salt. Like, hey, okay, well, this kid hasn't done much since March. We understand that, but obviously we want to see the polished tools, right? We want to see what the kid has, what the kid can and can't do. But it just gets to a point where the kids just need to be in communication, especially with you guys. That way you don't put them at risk, get hurt.
Yeah, and that was part of what we got out to them too, to make sure they're working.
Yeah.
All aspects. Because they can't take SATs right now, they're suspended. Who knows when they're going to be allowed to?
Right.
They should be killing this homeschooling. And getting better grades to raise the GPA, because I'm sure that's going to be a higher measurable weight if you don't have the SATs to draw upon with some of these kids,
Yep.
And let me just digress a little bit on what you said. Talking to some other coaches, a lot of people, we run a lot of the same circles. Mm-hmm. They feel, and I agree, that this summer fall season not only is utmost important for these guys to participate and be ready, but it might be the biggest separation of performance and talent that we've seen in a long time. And you kind of brushed upon that point, being the guys who really don't work, or as I like to say, work when nobody's looking, they don't have that high school season, that 6 nights of practice and games to keep them sharp. So the workers and the non-workers are going to really stand out come summer and fall. And I mean, do you think that's a fair assessment of what's looking ahead?
I do. I really do, right? Because when I show up to a game, when I start watching a kid, I start recruiting a kid, you know, the more times I see him, I can tell how's this kid's body, right? Is he getting softer or is he toning it up? Like we talk about that all the time, right? Is he physically maturing? Is he doing what he needs to? You know, we'll be able to tell who's staying sharp, you know, and who was able to do something and who wasn't. Now, am I going to dock a kid and knock a kid and say, heck no, I'm not going to recruit that kid? No, but the difference between the workers and the non-workers is going to show. And at the end of the day, the workers will have that leg up on them. Right.
Yeah.
So when I get out there, let's just say it's July 1, right? Bang, opening weekend, got the gun up, and the worker's been, you know, he's 87, 89. Okay, let's go and recruit. Now, then you have the non-worker who, let's say that first weekend gun goes up, he's 82, 83. It's like, okay, you know, again, for me, like, and like we'll talk about what I look for in a pitcher and a position player. If that kid's not ready, I have to go to somebody who I see is ready. I can't recruit on an assumption of like, oh yeah, this kid's usually 86, 88, but I'm seeing 81, 84, right? So the workers that are ready will get the first cracks at the opportunity, at the offer scholarship, you know, walk-on spot opportunities, you know, and then the non-workers, no offense to them, they kind of get shuffled to the back. Right, because now they're not showcasing up to the best of their ability. They haven't worked and they're not ready. Right, so for me, it's, you know, I want to see what I can as soon as I can. You know, and then obviously, you know, and another thing that you and I always talk about, you know, who do I trust? You know, I trust certain coaches, right, to give me the info and this and that, but at the end of the day, I still have to see with my own eyes. So the workers are going to work. The non-workers are not going to work, plain and simple.
Absolutely. And now you actually, you're doing a great job of directing the show. Thanks, Coach. You did a great segue to the next question.
Hey, I am the wrong guy to give the mic to. Don't give me the mic.
You're doing great. You're doing great. You're always one question ahead of me, which is pretty good. So I like it so far. You're making it easier for Ed and I. Let's talk about that. You mentioned your process. What's the framework that you work within? What do you look for when you first walk on a field? When you're there to see a specific player or two, or you're at a tournament and you're waiting for a game to start and you're going to go check out game on field 4 and maybe get wowed by somebody that you didn't expect.
Right.
How does Paul Panik and his recruiting crew work in that process?
So for me, it starts, and I'm going to digress for 30 seconds. I'll come back. It starts with, for me, especially as a 31-year-old head coach, you know, I took over the program. I was 30 years old, and you know, there's a core group of people that I trust, right? Guys that haven't steered me wrong, guys that have been truthful, honest, you know, not here to necessarily just sell me a player because I'm a Division I school, you know, but try to me find the right fit. So we always start with those guys first. It's always kind of a referral base kind of start, you know, but that's just information gathering. So if let's say you and I talk and you're like, hey, I got so-and-so player playing here. Okay. I'm going to show up, you know, probably in one of my Columbia fishing shirts, probably my Under Armour fishing pants, maybe a bucket hat, maybe sunglasses, but I'm going to stand up the line, right? So for me, the first thing that I do is I don't ask for numbers. I don't ask for, you know, what number the kid's wearing and this and that. What I do is, you know, I kind of blurry my eyes a little bit. You kind of blur your vision to kind of see everything kind of the same without seeing all the little extras and the details. That's what I kind of do, right? So now I'm mentally taking notes. Okay, two moves good. This guy moves good. I don't like that guy. That guy's body. Okay. So for me, like that's the first check, right? I watch them stretch, watch them throw, watch them go about their business. Are they professional? Are they sloppy? Are they careless? Are they jokesters? Are they actually taking their craft seriously? Right? A guy that runs out there with his jersey untucked and his kind of hat up like this, and and then he starts slinging balls around without stretching. I'm like, that kid doesn't take his craft seriously. So I watched the first part. I kind of start gathering. I'll be up the line, kind of off to myself. I'll be under a tree somewhere else. And then I'll ask coach, hey coach, what number is Johnny? What number is Johnny? Oh, he's number 4. Now I quickly go back. Okay, which guys stood out to me to start? Like it's like the blind taste test. Like which one stood out to start? Well, for me, it was 24, 3, and 0. Number 4. Okay, now what? Right? So for me, I'm always cross-referencing what I see and what I don't. I like to work in the shadows in a sense a lot of times. I don't like to, be out there. I don't just go out to be seen, right? I think a lot of times, us recruiters, we go out to be seen at times. But for me, I'd rather work smarter, not harder, and know what I'm going to see, who I'm going to see, because that kid may not know that I'm there. There are times where I won't ask Mike. I won't ask you and Ed, like, hey, what do you got? Like, who's there? I'm just there in the shadows watching, right? Yeah, of course, I'll have my stopwatch on me, right? Because you always got to cross check. Coaches always say, even I do with the pro scouts sometimes. I always shave a tenth of a second off, right off that 60. We all do it, right? But I like to cross check the home to first, and But other than that, like, I'm gonna stand up the line and I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna watch as a fan would watch, right? And I don't necessarily want that kid to know that I'm there, right? Because how is he when somebody's not looking? And at practice, right? I have me and my two assistants. I'm on one side of the field, one's on the other, and we're expecting these guys to be working on their bunt station. How's that? Is that kid gonna take his work seriously? Is he gonna take his craft seriously? If I'm not hawking him, my eye isn't directly on him, how's he gonna act? How's he gonna be? So for me, I want to see a lot of those characteristics, and I want to see how the kid interacts. Obviously the kid has to play, right? But you start checking the boxes. Yep, he does it, and then it turns into, well, first question, kid, like what's your grades, right? What's your SAT score? Are you a qualifier? Can you make it in? Can you do it? And then during the process, you get to know a kid. Is he? It was funny because I watched Mike Baxter, one of the assistants at Vanderbilt, and he was talking about like what, like the difference between a we kid and a me kid, right? He was talking about, is this kid selfish kid, or is he all about himself? Now in baseball, we need to be a little bit selfish, right? It's an individualistic team sport. It's pitcher versus hitter, pitcher versus next hitter, pitcher versus next hitter, next team, pitcher versus hitter, right? It's individual contests that create a team outcome, right? So you have to be a little bit selfish, but there are times where you need to be for the team. So I like to see team guys. Are they talking to their teammates? If he's a leadoff batter, does he come back and say, hey, his breaking ball was this, or his fast changeup, what was going on, right? To me, like, that's a team guy. Now, not everybody's like that, and that's fine. But I like seeing some of those things, and most importantly, I want to see a kid fail. I want to see him fail. I'm not just going to recruit a kid on 2 at-bats, right? I want to see him punch out. I want to see him punch out on a bad pitch. A 3-2 pitch that he takes, 6 inches off the plate, strike 3, he takes 1 step towards first. Well, what does he do? Does he turn around and chirp the umpire? Does he fling his bat? Does he come in a dugout, throw his helmet? Or is he professional? Does he keep his head down? And I've never, it's always funny because you say this, but you don't, like, I'm okay with a kid, and it happens, you say your piece under your breath, right, to yourself, right? But you don't show the umpire up, right? So you can be mad, you can be upset, you can be mad at yourself for not hitting the first pitch. You can be mad at the strike call, but how does it affect you? Most importantly, how does it affect the rest of your game? So I can quickly tell how quickly that kid can release that negative, or flush that negative. Now, like I use my brother as an example. He still does it to this day. When I go watch him, he still does it to this day. He has a bad at bat, ends an inning, rolls over, 2-0 change up, makes a third out, whatever, gives his helmet off, walks to second base. Usually that first throw, the first 2 throws to first base on the ground ball, in between innings, he rifles, he throws as hard as he can. And then once he goes to second base to catch the throw down, it's over, it's done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you separate your at bats, right? How do you stop the negative feelings from becoming an I person, right?
Yeah.
Your battle didn't go your way. Okay, well, now you have an opportunity to do something good for the team. How do you handle that?
Yeah,
So.
no, those are great points, and these are the types of things that I think they're invaluable to hopefully the players and hopefully some of their family members as well are listening to once this hits the social media. So because that's a lot of the stuff that we talk to as coaches, especially travel coaches, ad nauseum, and I think after a while become a talking head. We say it over and over and over again. We're always trying to tell them short memory, and go out, shake it off, go out and find another way to impact the game. And it's so good to hear coming from you. I'm sure it's going to have a very impactful result to the listening audience. And that's actually what we're looking for. Just because I know, and and Ed knows, but explain real quickly, if you may, I think it's only fair, why you referenced your brother. I don't think,
Right.
I know a lot of people know who he is, especially people who know you, but I know there's probably some people in the listening audience that, why is he talking about his brother? So just touch upon him a little bit to give him some reference.
Right. So my brother's in his seventh year in the big leagues. He was a 2011 first round draft pick out of St. John's. That his mental tool and his makeup was always that little extra that put him above some of the rest and above some other guys in the draft. So maybe some more talented guys. They took him on his work ethic, his drive, and his makeup. It's a lot of the difference between, like what they talk about between AA to AAA to the bigs. It's not necessarily the talent. High A to AA. That's like the big jump. It's about the makeup. Who can accept the failure, who can make the adjustment, who can do the things up here that some other guys can't, and that's the natural separator. So as you referenced, and that's why I reference it, because that's what I want to see. I want to see how's his makeup. Like there was actually a game that I went to a couple years ago when I was an assistant. I was actually at a game looking at a different kid, right? And I saw a different kid, and I was like, this kid's actually kind of a little bit more intriguing. Like, great, like, okay, like, all right, like let me start locking on that guy too. Split my vision a little bit. And I could tell that, like, it was a little yappy. Like, he was a little yappy. And it was back and forth in the dugouts. And I'm like, okay, where's this going? And he was like the ringleader. And then he scores a run, turns around, and double birds the opposing dugout. And I was like, wait, did that just happen? And I was in a high school playoff game. And I'm like, no thanks. Like, no, I like the kid, nothing wrong. I know kind of the backstory now of like who the kid is and this and that, but it still doesn't change my perception, right? It takes one gesture, one word, one whatever for me to be like, okay, I'll go to somebody else.
Yeah,
Right?
no, that's a great point. And I hear that all the time when coaches call me. Obviously you and I have a good relationship. We talk, you know, fair amount of time throughout a season, even the off season.
Yep.
And I know these are types of things you guys are looking for. And, and Ed also assists me, as you well know, with the 17U showcase team and as well as other things. And we talk about this all the time with our kids, and they need to hear this from somebody like you. And you know who else needs to hear it? I mean, I'm going to say it. The parents. They need to hear a lot of this stuff, especially, digressing, it seems to be the word, of what you said earlier. Every at bat, because of Scouts there, isn't earth ending for them. Failure is not a bad thing. And, that kind of pressure that comes from the stands, because the parent thinks if you don't go 4 for 4 with a ding dong, he's never going to come watch you again. So these are really, 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 really good points. And I think the next thing, and it's a good segue too, I think it's a kind of cool note. Isn't your brother's first name Joe? Is Joe Panik? Yeah. Yep. So I think we might be the only 2 people doing these type of social media things that have brothers that played Major League Baseball or named.
That's right.
I think that's kind of cool. So we have our own little club. So
yeah, I'm good with that. I'm going to
roll with that. So with that being said, moving on, let's talk a little bit about, and you could go back into anything more about recruiting if you want, but I want to get a little bit more of a feel, and I want the people out there too who may be interested in a college like Iona and a coach like Paul Panik because of some of the things that you're sharing right now. What's your offensive philosophy? What's your hitting philosophy? Things like that. What makes Paul Panik a happy guy at the end of the day when everything goes according to plan?
At the end of the day, as long as we win, I don't care how he got there. But there are a lot of things that add up, almost like we were talking about, each individual battle, each individual contest adds up to a team total, right? So what we try to establish is a run scoring culture, right? And that's kind of my title of it. And at the end of the day, you're going to have your gorillas and you're going to have your rabbits, right? You don't want to have a team full of one or a team full of the other. Right, you want some guys that can drive the ball out of the yard. You got some guys that can run the bases, and then you got to have some guys that can hit, like the in between guys. You got to have some of those in between guys too. So for me, and I think that's how your team gets tailored. I tailor my offensive stuff based upon who we have. Right, I might have thought that a kid was going to be a little bit more this coming in or that, and then boom. He turns into a gorilla, or he sheds 15 pounds, and now he's running a 6'6", and now he's stealing bags. I think for me, it truly becomes it's about the personnel. Like next year, we're gonna have some bangers, right? We got about 6 guys that can leave the yard in our lineup at any time.
So would that be fair to assume that that's one of your gorillas?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So okay. For all the people at home. We kind of, coaches, we kind of classify hitters into 2 types, the gorillas and the rabbits, right? The gorillas are the big, strong kids. We'll strike out a little bit, but they're swinging hard, they're swinging to try to lift the ball and hit the ball out of the park, right? And the rabbits are the guys that, punch the ball in the gap and can run, steal some bags, kind of do some of the extra stuff, right? So you want to get the rabbit on base. That way the gorilla can hit the ball over the center field's head and he can score for first on the double. Right.
Absolutely.
So for me, next year we're gonna have more. I guess you could say more juice in our lineup. So we won't hit and run as much. We probably won't steal as many bags, as a collective unit. Now we're gonna have a couple guys that can. We might potentially have 2 or 3 20-bag guys, but. The situation calls for certain things at certain points, right? I was always a fan of the sack bunt. Like now obviously numbers and the statistics show things are different now, right? But 8th inning tie ball game, guy gets on first base, I'm gonna bunt. Like tie ball game in a conference game on getaway Sunday where it's a 1-1 series and we need this game for a tiebreaker. And my 8 or 9 hole guys up, my 9 hole guys up, you can put your money on black. I'm putting it down, right? You're 50-50. No. I'm put it all in on black. I'm putting the ball down, right?
Yeah.
So, I try to have a little bit of an old school approach with a little bit of a new with the newer mindset, right? Because again, we are not LSU and Florida State and so many schools that everybody in the lineup can hit the ball at the park at any time. So we need to manufacture runs. We need to have quality at bats, right? We need to take the walk, right? I think the walk these days is very underrated. A guy gets a hit, and then instead of chasing a 3-2 breaking ball, he lays off, and that's a walk. Now it's first and second. You see what I mean? It's we work a lot on kind of our approach, how what we're looking for, what we're trying to hit, what we want to hit, and again, it's okay. Well, gorilla, okay, fine, go swing the bat, get off your 3 best swings, and if you punch out. Exactly. You punch out, right? You don't want them to, right? In certain situations, run around third, less than 2 out, infield in, you got to put the ball in play, or infield back, got to put the ball in play, right? But if we're down by a run in the 8th inning and it's 2 outs, nobody on, I'm okay with a strikeout there. If you're going to take 3 good swings to try to hit the ball out of the yard or put one in the gap to where, because again, the numbers show to string together 3 hits in a row, bing, 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 it's very, very rare. It happens like 2 to 4% of the times, right? Yeah. So you're better off trying to swing for it. And again, you're not necessarily trying to swing, create this, and do all that. You're more trying to drive a good line drive in the gap, and if it carries, it carries. It doesn't, it doesn't. I want our guys concerned about hitting the ball hard, owning that middle outer third of the plate, right? That about 10 to 11 inches out, on the white. With 2 strikes, I need him to battle. I need him to be tough, right? And, and in practice, we're not easy on him. So,
yeah. So that's good. So you got into a little bit of it there. So you're talking about how you develop your players. Is that pretty much the formula, or is it more to that on how you develop your players? I mean, because we already know you're looking for certain types of players. You're looking for certain mindsets. You're looking for that good teammate to make your team great rather than maybe a great player. How does that all come? How does that soup get mixed up when we're all together come that first day of fall? Excitement levels are high. What's the process? What's your formula?
I think for me, it starts with dumbing everything back down, right? I want everybody on my 35-man, all the hitters, all the pitchers, to be refreshed and have the same info, right? This is how, basically I take one day, I tour the bases. This is how we're going to do our turns. This is how we're going to hit first bases, and we're going to peak, right? This is how we're going to take our leads. This is how we're going to round the bases. This is how we're going to steal second base. This is our method. This is how we're going to steal third base. This is our method. This is how we tag up, from third base on a fly ball, right? So I make sure that each guy has all the knowledge. We go through all the offensive stuff, slash and run. Like our guys love the slash. Somebody they think that he's gonna bunt. Sometimes if I put a bunt on, and that third baseman crashes, I don't even have to put a sign on. They know, they have the green light. If he's down your neck, pull back, go right ahead, be my guest, right? Because more than likely that pitcher's either throwing a slow breaking ball that try to mess you up, or he's gonna throw you a fat fastball because he wants you to bunt the ball hard at the third baseman right there.
Yeah, or a fastball up.
Yep, whack. Boom, right in his teeth, right? So we basically we break everything back down. For the seniors and those guys, it stinks for them because they've heard it 3 times. This is their 4th. But for me to coach it with everybody, it's good that way everybody has the same verbiage and everybody's on the same page. And then I think from there, it's, we have to develop, right? We're not top 25 team in the country where, as a coach, they're recruiting the next draft pick, right? We're recruiting the next player that we can plug into our machine, right?
Yeah.
So, and in that machine, we need to develop guys, right? And we need to give them, we need to give them the tools of the trade, right? I know, heck, there are a lot of guys that, some recruiting coordinators at bigger schools, and they don't see games. Sometimes they miss a conference weekend if they have to go look at guys, and they'll never see a midweek game where maybe their freshmen could benefit from seeing some, from their freshman could benefit from him seeing something instead of being out trying to recruit the next guy. So for us, we don't miss games. We very rarely miss practices, right? It's, unless it's like a special mission, but our guys need to develop, right? Our freshmen at bats, our freshman pitchers need innings, right? And there's multiple different ways to kind of go about that. How we do that at Iona is, we call developmental Wednesdays or Thursdays. So the guys that, let's say, didn't pitch on early on the first 3 weekends, we don't have midweeks. It's too cold up here. So during those weeks, whoever didn't throw on the weekend, let's say we use 12 out of 15 arms or 16 arms, those 4 guys will throw 2 innings against, freshmen or whoever didn't have as many at bats, whoever needs at bats, right? Or whoever needs to work on something. Hey, this guy struggled with lefty breaking balls. Hey, Jimmy, throw Johnny all breaking balls here, right? It's for the development aspect, and I just think that it's irresponsible as a coach to go out there and say, hey, man, be ready. Your opportunity is going to come, but you got to be ready, right? Well, if you haven't taken a live AB so you get about 30 at-bats preseason, right? And then we open up. And then it's all bets are off. Imagine if a kid hasn't seen a live AB in 3 weeks. Weekend 4, that guy gets hurt that's in front of him. Now what? I think it's irresponsible as a coach to think that guy, without seeing, having a live AB in even if it's a week, 2 weeks, it's irresponsible to think that guy's gonna be able to play, that you're gonna be able to plug and play that guy, and that the team's not gonna miss a beat, right?
Yeah.
Right. We actually saw a couple of the freshmen this year. Basically, they struggled early, struggled in the winter, right, a little bit, and. It could because again, when the game starts speeding up, when everything's on the line now. We're opening up at College of Charleston, and this guy's me here. Our own guys are getting you out, and things start snowballing. Once they were able to catch their breath, and then they were getting more and more at bats during the midweeks. By weekend 4, we had 2 guys that, as a staff, were sitting there saying, we got to find a way to get this guy in the lineup. But he wasn't opening day. He wasn't an opening day starter. Both of them they weren't opening day starters. But it got to a point where they were getting their reps and they were getting their work and they were getting more comfortable, right? So
the old proverbial ready when your number is called. And a lot of people don't realize, especially when you get higher up with the organizations that are, backed by a university or, a pro team, whatever, a lot of that responsibility does start with the organization. The kids don't have the opportunity to go home and work on their own. So
right.
I think it's a good point, Paul. And, I think we covered a lot of great points here today. I really appreciate you coming on board. I know Ed was looking forward to it as well. And I think our listening audience, if that's the correct term for what we're doing here, really learned a lot. And what I'd like to do is, I think it would be a great way to end this, and you can keep it as short or as long as you would like. We obviously have a good relationship with you, and we appreciate and respect that relationship. You have one of our 2019 guys up there, Jimmy Pasquale. You got one of our 2020 guys, Tony Santa Maria, coming in this fall. What should people know, or is there anything that people should know about A, your program, or B, your school, your learning institution, that maybe we didn't cover, that you think you would like to get out there before we call it a night here?
I think for me, the biggest thing as a program, I want guys that want to blaze a trail, guys that want to be different, that are okay with being different. Maybe Iona may not be the popular choice or the sexiest choice. You know, we don't have the $25 million stadium and we don't have all the bells and whistles. But what we're trying to do is trying to establish and create a winning, competitive culture that is sustainable, right? And somebody needs to start the sustainability, right? The 18s, the 19s, now the 20s, you know, and now for the 21s, 22s, it's okay. Now it's time to start winning. But we want guys that don't care what other people think, right? We want guys that, you know, don't
Understand
care.
fit.
Exactly. They know that they're going to come in and make a difference, and they want to make a difference. They don't want to go to a place, have a cool signing party, and then leave after a year, right? I want guys that are committed to a process, committed to trying to make Iona the best school. There's no reason why Iona can't be your LSU or Power 5 or whatever school you want to, or whatever example you want to use, right? It's what you make out of it. And we want guys that want to compete and want to make Iona special, plain and simple.
That's awesome. And you do that. You do a great job with that. And that's why, again, we're a big supporter of your program. And, you know, it's something that we share, and I'm glad you touched upon that with our kids too. We try to tell them it's all about fit. You know, yep. I want to be able to assist kids and help them get into a school that a year from now, they're not going to be on the transfer portal, you know, because they went for the brand name. They don't realize the difficulty and the opportunities that are not as bold. Like, for instance, the opportunity to play for all 4 years when you go to a school like the couple that you've named, you know, and we want them to understand that, you know, let's go where it's a good fit. You're getting the education you want. You have the opportunity to play all 4 years. And more importantly, would you still want to go there if something happened, God forbid, and you couldn't play baseball anymore? You know, so you've touched upon that, and I'm glad that it's something that you brought up, because I think it's overlooked. Sometimes we get a little overzealous, maybe as parents, you know, oh wow, we got a letter from, you know, what name of school? I don't know. You named LSU, you know, yeah, well, all right, well, let's look at this. Is that really a good fit for you? And how much do they really need you? That's another thing, you know, so it's very important. And it's great that you touched upon that and you shared that, because I think parents out there that are listening, and of course the players, need to hear that. Because if we went back, I always said, and I don't mean this to be mean or like I'm the guy, you know, I know everything, but I've been doing it long enough. I always joke and say, I wish I could write a book and go back historically and gather data and look at all the people that were committed to huge schools, and where are they now? How long did they last? How long did it take for them to either just flat out quit, hit the transfer portal, or anything like that? And you know, and when you get a D1 school like yourself, that's not even on your mind going in. You want this kid for 4 years, and you're going to do what you can take to make sure he's academically eligible to qualify and he's good enough to perform to get on the field. And that's so important. So important. So unless you have anything you want to add, or Ed, anything you want to add, I think this will be a good jumping off point. And in case Ed does have something to say, Paul, I want to thank you again, man. You made this first episode of Taking Hacks with New Jersey Baseball quite informative and very interesting. And I actually enjoyed it myself. As much as we talk, you know, I've heard a lot of this, but this was very, very, very enjoyable. And I appreciate coming out. Thank you so much.
I appreciate both of you guys having me, man. This is part of the enjoyable part of my job, right? Sometimes you know, I'm dealing with housing, and you're dealing with this, you're dealing with that, but you know, to be able to talk baseball and talk about, and with pride of what we do, man, that's special. And I thank the both of you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and hey, you got to show off that new sexy beard. I mean, come on, that's good.
I got to shave at some point. As soon as we get back on the recruiting trail, I'll shave. How about that?
All right. Well,
when you see me, I'll shave. When you see me this summer, I'll be shaving.
I'm going to hold you to that. You know that. So
we'll see.
Ed, anything you'd like to say?
Nope, just going to wrap it up for us here. This is the first episode of Taking Hacks with New Jersey Baseball with head coach Paul Panik from Iona and founder Mike Lahoud of New Jersey Baseball. We had a great time bringing it to you, and we're going to bring it again and bring it again and bring it again. We hope that we can get Coach Panik back to us to talk to us over the summer, maybe once or twice, and looking forward to it. So thank you all. We'd like to thank Iona College's head baseball coach, Paul Panik, for giving us his insights into the recruiting process. Join us next time when Brett Miller, assistant coach and recruiting coordinator from Frostburg State University, takes some hacks with New Jersey baseball.